Hello and welcome to the Armourer with me, Blue, and today I want to make a video about the most underrated cards of this year's releases, in my opinion. And as you can see, I will start with Silverwind Shuriken from Outsiders. Silverwind Shuriken, a card that kind of requires setup, and I mean, it's not obviously not too great. If it was, people would have been playing it a lot, but in my opinion, it's not that bad. It practically gives you a second activation for like the Katsu gloves, which are pretty devastating, right? Whenever you're attacking with a Whelming Gust Wave, threatening a draw, and your opponent having to overblock with an additional 1, right? Like they now have to block 4, 5 instead of 4. It can be very hard for your opponents to do that, especially doing that consistently. And when you, on your off turn, present like a Silverwind Shuriken on top of that, it can kind of make their day even worse in a way, right? Because you can do things like start with a Surging Strike, maybe forcing some blocks into one of the waves, maybe forcing some other blocks. And if this is like the 4th card in your hand, right, you had Surging Strike, a wave or something else, another blue, and then your last card is a Silverwind Shuriken. You can just drop it as your last card. You can drop it turn 1, you can block with your entire hand if your opponent is coming in with something very strong like Azalea, and you can then just drop the Silverwind Shuriken, basically making them never being able to block your attacks. So yeah, I think there's definitely potential in this card. Next, I'm moving to Visit the Floating Dojo, a card that has actually seen play and not a small amount of play, but in my opinion, people are just not talking about this card enough. In my opinion, this card is amazing and it really solves a lot of Katsu's issues, in my opinion, because Katsu is a very strong, aggressive deck, but his downside is that he's very dependent on Surging Strike, and the blue Surging Strike is kind of bad. And only having like 6, basically 9 with like water Surging Strikes in your deck can be kind of bad, especially against defensive decks that can kind of just block you out. Well, now you have Visit the Floating Dojo. Visit the Floating Dojo is basically a way better remembrance for Katsu only, because it's going to remembrance exactly your Surging Strike and a combo piece, most likely one of the Gust Waves. You can combo this off with pitching another one of the combo pieces, like I forgot the names, like Bonds of Ancestry or something. So you can like pitch a blue Bonds in order to attack with the Surging Strike or something, and then just finish your turn by using Visit the Floating Dojo, putting another Surging Strike and Whelming Gust Wave to the bottom of your deck together with the Bonds. So basically now you have all 3 stacked at the bottom of your deck. Not using your Katsu ability against a very defensive deck like Oldhim was, or something like Bravo, or maybe any future Guardians, is not that hard, right? Because it's up to you if you wanna use it, and against those matchups you'll anyway kind of prefer to just slowly be chipping them down with Kodachis anyway. And against aggressive decks, if you need space and you want to be playing this card into like everyone, this can kind of ensure that you're going to have like a follow-up, basically, right? Like whenever you manage to go for Surging Strike, Whelming Gust Wave, your opponent blocks everything, and you just finish with Visit the Floating Dojo, putting both the Surging Strike and the Whelming Gust Wave on top of your deck, meaning that next turn your opponent will also have to block this combo. And they will probably not be able to, because a lot of decks will actually need to use armor pieces in order to block the combo. So yeah. Next in Outsiders is Tarpy Trap, a trap that has seen some amount of play but I think is once again very underrated, like compared to obviously the rest of the Outsiders cards, like Premeditate, Codex of Ferocity, and so on. Obviously way better and more powerful cards, but Tarpate Trap definitely deserves a mention because stopping an on-hit effect can be so devastating, right? Rangers playing against something like the Assassin can use Tarpate Trap on his dagger, which is going to have go again, and then none of the assassin's own hit effects afterwards are going to work. So no leave no witnesses, no CNCs, no black tech whispers, none of that shit. And it even has some very nice uses in something like the Living Legend format against something like Brawl Star of the Show, because Brawl Star of the Show will sometimes just show you all the elements and attack you with something like a Crippling Crush or an Oakenote, you know, any of these devastating attacks, and because they will have go again, because he showed you the elements, you will be able to use Tarpate Trap in order to just block 3 damage and stop the effect. And that can also be extremely good. You know, it's obviously also extremely good into ninjas, you know, stuff like Katsu, because using Tarpate Trap on one of his attacks, you know, for example, let's say you go for, he goes for like Be Like Water, you allow the Be Like Water to hit, he then goes for Whelming Gust Wave. Well, you can now just block for 3 even though it's 4 and he will not draw a card. Another thing you can do is maybe he attacks with a Surging Strike, hoping that the Surging Strike can hit in order to find the Whelming Gust Wave. Now you can block with Tarpate Trap and his Katsu will not trigger, so he won't be able to find it. So it has a lot of uses and it's a very powerful effect, and it's defense reaction, and it's also a yellow, so it's incredibly flexible in my opinion. Next I have Mask of Malicious Manifestation, a card that is not amazing, but has some pretty cool uses in a format like Blitz for Rangers slash Assassins. Something like Riptide is making very good use of this, but other decks can as well, maybe in the future. So basically the idea of this Riptide deck, and maybe anything else in the future, is that you will play one attack in your deck, and this one attack currently is Nourishing Emptiness. So you are able to just activate the mask, put a card from your hand or arsenal on the bottom of your deck, destroy the mask, reveal cards from the top of your deck until you reveal an attack action card, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So this is going to allow you to basically search for that one attack that you need in those classes, obviously. And that's a pretty cool interaction, and I think it definitely deserves a mention, right? Because in Blitz, starting off with basically a guaranteed Nourishing Emptiness turn 1 is going to be quite nice, right? I mean, the rest of this, the rest of that Riptide deck plays a bunch of cards that retrieve the Nourishing Emptiness again and again. And once again, the mask really helps you with that, because it kind of guarantees puts it in the graveyard. Next, I have both of the codexes, of the other 2 codexes. Codex of Ferocity kind of takes the cake for like obviously being the most powerful one, but I think both of these are kind of nice, right? We have seen Codex of Inertia see play in Lexi during the time where both Icelander and Oldhim were prevalent, because Codex of Inertia is basically the only just instant inertia card in the game, right? You don't really care about any of the effects, but if you just want to give your opponent inertia because their deck functions so much better and more smoothly whenever they have an arsenal, and you just want to disrupt that, you can just play Codex of Inertia, and that's it. Now they have inertia. and you have Ponder. So like just as a standalone card, it's pretty nice. Even if you already have an arsenal, right? It's like if your deck is not consistent enough to have like useful cards on the top of the deck in order for like Codex of Inertia to be amazing, you can still use it when you have an arsenal already, right? So what you can do is just play Codex of Inertia, get Ponder, give them Inertia, and then attack with something from your arsenal, and then just get the Ponder arsenal something else. So yeah, it's pretty good for that. And Codex of Bloodrot also pretty good because I mean it kind of allows you to play some cool attacks like Death Touch and so on, right? When you have them in your hand, because like directly puts them in your arsenal. But even without that, it's just once again just a direct 2 damage. Also generates your Ponder, and it can also get rid of a card from your opponent's hand, right? So basically, if your opponent has no cards in hand, you can still play Bloodrot box, the Codex, and they will have to put one of the cards in their hand into the arsenal. So now they only have 3 cards to block with. You have a Ponder, they have a Blood box, and I mean that's plenty of value in my opinion for a singular card. Anyway, you know, the problem mainly is that in those decks right now you have plenty of just better cards, so you can't really find the space. But as a standalone cards, both of these are also pretty nice. You know, maybe not as powerful as Codex of Frailty, but still powerful. And lastly, in my opinion, Peace of Mind is a card that has seen some amount of play with Oldhim. But the moment we get another defensive or even semi-defensive class that wants to be using anything that costs 1 mana during your opponent's turn, right? Like be it a shield, if it's a guardian, or something else, Peace of Mind is definitely going to at least be experimented with. Because whenever you can utilize something else alongside it, right? Like you pitch a blue for, let's say, the Guardian Shield, or like the Illusionist Boots or whatever, and you're basically using 2 cards in order to block 5, which is kind of below rate, but at the same time it's like an instant, and it also generates your Ponder. So effectively it then becomes like a 1 card play. And it's like if that class in particular also needs Arsenal in order to do anything, it's also going to be amazing. So yeah, I think this is definitely a very good generic card. It does not prevent any type of damage, it prevents physical damage only, but kind of generating a Ponder I feel is very strong, right? Because I mean at that point, yeah, you can kind of like just play Sink Below, which is going to prevent like the same amount of damage, and it also has like a filtering effect. But the whole idea with Peace of Mind is that first it's an instant, second, if you pitch a blue you can like do something else alongside it, which is going to like at that point make it better than Sink Below. And it also gives you the Ponder token, and there may be classes and synergies with just tokens of any sort, right? So yeah, definitely one of the cards that we should be thinking about in the future, I think. Next, getting to Dusk Till Dawn, in my opinion, Figment of Judgment, a card that is very powerful, and I don't hear enough people talking about it. When this enters the arena, you may turn a card in any banish zone face down. So the idea of this is it's pretty cool, right? It can it can stop so many plays. Right, because with Halo of Illumination you can pay one resource during your opponent's turn in order to put a hero from your hand into your soul and then draw a card, and like putting a hero into your soul is going to trigger Prism, allowing you to just bring the Figment of Judgment in play during your opponent's turn. It's going to stop things like Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, which banishes a card and allows you to play it during the end phase, until the end phase, and you can just respond with Figment of Judgment to that. Katsu's ability is also something that you can screw with like Figment of Judgment, so basically they discard a card, trigger Katsu, banish a card that they can play this turn, and you just Figment of Judgment and turn that card face down, they can no longer do it. Against things like Vincent, this can just be a time walk in a lot of situations where the Vincent has like one attack in the bunny zone and they play something like any of the go again enablers like Movrian Skies or Shadow Puppetry, and then you just react with Figment of Judgment, turning their Rune Gate card in the bunny zone face down, and now they basically cannot continue with the turn. The majority of the times, right? You can also do this against Levia. You know, like if the Levy is playing any of the recursion engine pieces, right? Like the 3 resources, or like the 2 resources plus 3 that you can play from the banish zone, or like the 1/4 that you can play from the banish zone. Like any of these recursion pieces, you can stop them from recurring by just turning them face down while they're in their banish zone. You can flip something with Blood Depth in their banish zone in response to the activation of like Doomsday, for example, and turn their Blood Depth cards from like 6 to 5. You can, when they turn into Blasmophet, you can simply use Figment of Judgment to turn one of the Screamers or something else that they have like one of, like for example the Dominate card, or a Screamer or something like this. You can just flip it face down and now they can no longer access it. Even against Dorinthia, they have this attack reaction that allows them to banish an attack reaction and use it till the end of the turn. You can use Figment of Judgment in response to that and just flip the attack reaction face down. Even against something like Kano, if you get them in a situation where they do not have resources to just play out the rest of the turn or something like this, you can maybe turn something face down in their banish zone and kind of screw them up. It's not that amazing, but you can definitely do it. So yeah, in Living Legend against Chain, you can definitely screw Chain with this card, especially when you turn face down the 0 for 2 go again, that allows you to get rid of even more Blood Depth cards from your hand. There's a lot of things you can do with Figment of Judgment, and a lot of plays that you can basically destroy for your opponent. Next is Avawon, in my opinion the best Angel, or like the one that you can kind of like try to exploit the most, with her ability to basically return back on the top of your deck any yellow card. This is mostly used with the Prism specialization, obviously, with the Sentinel, but you can use it with any of the auras, right? Even if you don't have a Sentinel, getting back a Genesis against a deck that doesn't really want to be dealing with auras is still strong. And obviously the ALS loops are insanely cool and strong in this game, and this is the card that enables them. Next I have Expandable Limbs, a defense reaction that I expected to see play in Levia, but at the end of the day it's all no play, so it's basically a blue 0 for 4 defense reaction that says as an additional cost, banish a random card from your hand. If a card with 6 or more is banished this way, you may play it from your banish zone during your next action phase. You know, so Leviuses do play Reckless Swing, and I feel like they play Reckless Swing just to have it in their deck as an additional 2 damage to close out the game and to kind of scare their opponent from getting down to 2 life or something like this, which is definitely what you should be doing in my opinion. But Expandable Limbs, I feel, is not that bad. Obviously, you cannot control what you have in your hand as much, but I feel like now with the release of heavy hitters and hopefully at least one additional 6 power blue card, the consistency of Expandable Limbs is going to go up a lot, right? And being able to block 4 with a blue card for 0 and then just banish anything random that you can then just play as if nothing happened during your next turn can be extremely swingy in my opinion, right? For example, your opponent attacks you with a Gust Wave for 4, you just do Expandable Limbs, you banish like one of your 2 red cards from your hand instead of banishing the blue card, so it's like 2 out of 3 chance or something like this, and the chance can even be 100% if we receive some good 6 power cards in the blue slot, and next turn you can just lay out one of your attacks, arsenal a card and continue, basically not losing any value and just getting a free 0 for 4 on a blue, and that feels very powerful to me. Then we have Numbskull. Numbskull, I feel, is just Numbskull, right? It feels very meta dependent, obviously, but then at the same time it just has a cool effect, right? Like if we are going to be playing against some illusionists that are going to be taking cards that reduce the power of our attacks in order to make them non-poppers, especially if the new Luminaris makes Herald Prism more viable and better, Numbskull is going to say no to all of that, right? Like Herald of Triumph, Angel of Triumph, Figment of Triumph, whatever, you're just going to block with Numbskull, and Numbskull is going to stay at 6 power. He won't care. Your opponent attacking you with a Spider's Bite, well, Numbskull is gonna be blocking for 3 anyway. Your opponent playing Channel Lake Frigid or something similar whenever Ice comes back, well, Numbskull is still costing 2 resources. So yeah. And if this works that way, it can also be very good in order to like destroy large chunks of ice, because his cost would like just still be 2, I feel, I think. But yeah, it's just the effect of not being modifiable in any sort of way kind of is pretty cool, and it also has like the quintessential stats of like just 2 for 6 block 3, so it's like not that offensively bad, even like just as a standalone card. Next, still from Dusty Dawn, I have Scepter of Pain. Scepter of Pain is a card that has not been talked about a lot, if not at all. Probably mainly because Viserai simply does not have the tools in order to do anything cool or remotely competitive with it now. But one thing you should remember and know about Scepter of Pain is that it is actually a Runeblade weapon that they can use in order to attack and deal damage and create rune chants. That is not actually an attack, but it just deals arcane damage, meaning that attacking with Scepter of Pain is not going to consume your rune chant tokens, it's just going to amass you even more, which is not something any of the other weapons can do, right? which is like one of the biggest problems of the Vincent specialization, the flare weapon, right? Because a lot of times you have some rune chance generated from somewhere else, and attacking with it is just going to pop the rune chance immediately, and then you need it to hit in order to create a rune chant. Well, with Scepter of Pain, it's going to deal arcane damage, which is like harder to block, and it's not going to trigger your rune chants. So if we ever get support for like this rune chant stacking gameplay of Viscerai in a future set, which I feel like we will. We have been consistently getting Viscerai cards in these expansion slots, kind of showing him going on a journey or something like this, and I feel like somewhat soonish, maybe even maybe not that soon, but like we definitely need to receive some amount of rune blades, right? Like, because Chain and Briar are gone, and we do have Vincent and Viscerai, but both of them are just very, very bad at the moment. So hopefully we'll receive a set where we'll get like another wizard at least, and maybe like a rune blade in that same set as well. And that same set will hopefully bring like enough playable cards for like both Vincent and Viscerai as well. Hold the Line has seen some play in the beginning of the format, definitely, and I feel like Hold the Line will continue seeing play. Hold the Line just extremely good, right? Like, when it works, it's extremely good, because it's a 0 for 2 or defense reaction on a blue card that says if the attacking hero has drawn 2 or more cards this turn, prevent the next 3 damage that will be dealt to your hero this turn. So it's going to be preventing any sort of damage, and it's going to be preventing the next 3 damage, right? So if your opponent attacks you with like a weapon for 2 or something like this after they've drawn 2 cards or anything, you can just use Hold the Line, block the 2 damage here, and then they can like attack you with Kodachi. Kodachi is going to prevent 1 damage from the Kodachis, and then they can attack you with a 4 damage card, and you can just block 4, and the last remaining 1 damage from here is just going to be blocked. So that's very versatile, and drawing 2 cards at the start of a hero's turn seems like something that's going to be happening more and more, right? Levias nowadays are playing Blood Rush Bellows as well as Art of Wars, and all of these cards draw your card, all of these combo turns draw your card. Fies are going to be playing Art of Wars, which also draws you cards. Lexi with her draw 3 is now gone, but we are getting in a meta where we're going to have a bunch of gold. We're going to have a bunch of gold laying around, which probably means that a lot of decks, or at least some decks, are going to be playing Cash-In, and Cash-In is also going to be drawing 2 cards. Things like Kasai may want to play something like Gorganian Tome, and turns like just Gorganian Tome into pitch something for the gold in order to like filter and draw even more cards. Can be quite common, or just straight up just cash in into whatever and like make Hold the Line live again. So yeah, I definitely think it's very, very good whenever it works. And when it's in a meta where it can work, it's going to be very strong. And just as a baseline card, it's not that bad, right? Blocking 2 instead of 3 is not that bad, especially when it's on a defense reaction that has such a high ceiling, and also is just a blue, right? So if your deck does not need specific blues in order to function, then you can basically play Hold the Line at almost 0 cost. Next, we're getting to Hack to Reality. Hack to Reality is a yellow generic action for 1 that blocks 2 says your next attack this turn gains +2. It's not attack action, it's just any attack. The next time you hit a hero this turn, destroy a non-token aura they own with cost less than or equal to the damage dealt this way. So yeah, basically this is going to allow you to kind of combat Prism if she becomes a problem. Right, like in gold toll decks, like Azalea and Bravo, you can maybe just play Hack to Reality on something dominated that is going to hopefully hit them for like 4 or something and allow you to not only deal damage to them but also destroy their 4 cost auras. In decks like Fi or something similar, if it ever has some problems with running into Prism, you can just use Hack to Reality at the start of your combat chain and then attack them a bunch of times, especially with Kodachis. You're probably just going to push at least 1 damage through, and that 1 damage is going to trade immediately with one of their blue auras. So as a whole, this seems pretty cool. This just seems pretty strong. Against Dormai, you can technically use this in order to remove Burn Them All, because it's also a 0 cost aura. That's not a token. So yeah, I think it's definitely a card that is underrated and is probably going to have a bunch of future potential. Still in Dusk Till Dawn, we continue with like these just generic cards that still haven't had the time to shine. But definitely seem like they have the potential, and Censor is one of those cards. As I talked about, a bunch of decks playing around these power cards like Art of War and Blood Rush Bellow and so on. Censor is going to be very powerful against those. You know, I feel like Censor in a deck like Fi or something like this that can attack a bunch of times, force some blocks, or at least force some damage, and then you see your opponent is not willing to block you at all, signaling that they probably have a very good hand. You can kind of finish that chain with a Censor, and at that point you can just call out their like one of their cards that kind of makes their combo work, right? For example, you're playing against Bolton, you attack them a bunch of times, they do not commit any attacks to blocking, they do not commit any cards to blocking, and you can just censor them at the end, calling like something like Lumina Ascension. You can play against Levia and call like Blood Rush Bellows. You can play against Azalea and like at any point just call Red in the Ledger, because that's practically the only on-hit effect you care about. So yeah, Censor, very good. We're moving to the newer set, and Kogrik's Base Head and Evil Circuit Breaker, in my opinion, are kind of underexplored. In my opinion, the ability of like playing these together with a couple of hyperdrivers from Max and just shuffling like 2-3 times, like around 7 cards back into your deck can be very devastating, right? Like you can kind of work a pitch stack of your own on the bottom of your deck with the Evil Circuit Breaker. And I feel that is underexplored and is definitely something that feels powerful, especially in a strategy where you're kind of milling yourself out. Being able to kind of like retrieve 7 of your power cards that you banished incidentally back into your deck feels powerful to me. Demolition Protocol is something that is definitely going to see play and is going to be very devastating for Mechanologist players if Tekel Vossen ever becomes playable. It's definitely going to be the bane of like Dash and Max, because it removes Removes all the steam counters from like equipment and whatnot, so you can just destroy his hyperdrivers. You can remove all the counters from Dash's pistol and so on. And it's on a 3-for-7, so it's like very hard to block. Then we have Stasis Cell. This allows you to kind of negate the effect of an armor piece twice, and that can be very good, right? And it's also on the blue card, so kind of the opportunity cost is not that high. It's just that we do not really have those items that are so important right now. But the moment we do, well, Stasis Cell is going to be amazing in my opinion. Soup Up is a card that I think is insane, and I feel like maybe we need to play a little bit more of those, especially in something like Max if you're trying to be offensive. Even though a lot of Maxes are just going for Mechanoid combo right now, I hope that Max kind of gets some more support in order to be an actual deck instead of just Mechanoid combo. So Soup Up is just a 0-for-4 go again if you destroy the knight on this turn, which is incredibly easy whenever you have something like the Hyperdriver tokens, because the Hyperdriver gets destroyed the moment he reaches 0 steam counters. So you pay the previous turn, you put it on the field, you crank it immediately, it's back to 1. During your turn you just go for boost something, gain the 1 resource, destroy the Hyperdriver, then immediately scoop up for just a 0-for-4 go again on top of everything. Or alternatively just use it as a 0-for-4 block by simply blowing up a Hyperdriver. It just seems very versatile in both defense and block, and it seems amazing in both situations. Infuse Alloy kind of follows the same reasoning, right? Just a 0-for-4 that you can play like at the end of the chain or something like this, especially if you're trying to not mill yourself out so much, and if you're trying to play some sort of a more mid-range plan with Max. Having your deck be full of cards that can either be 0-for-4 on offense or 0-for-4 on defense seems like something that can definitely work in the future. Intoxicating Shot. We haven't really talked about this much, mainly because it's a Riptide specialization, and Riptide is not amazing. But giving your opponent Courage and Quicken is very good. It's very good because this is a blue card that you can now use for like re-win, because we will at least try to play re-win. But like LSS seems to be giving Riptide even more blue cards, right? Like all of his specializations, I believe, are blue cards, even though he doesn't really have anything to use these blue cards on, but at the very least, it's a blue that's a 0-for-4, that's pretty good damage rate for a blue, and it gives your opponent benefits, quote unquote, but if you manage to have the correct traps whenever they are attacking you back, you're going to be in a very advantageous position, right? Like giving Quicken to something like a Guardian or a Zelia, like any of these Go Tall decks that normally will never attack you with a Go Again card. So now you give them the Quicken, and you can now use Tarpit Trap to just prevent their own hit effects, right? If they were planning to attack you with like a big Crippling Crush or something, now the Crippling Crush, because of the Quicken, is going to have Go Again, so you can just use Tarpit Trap and just negate its effect entirely, or the same thing going for a big Red in the Ledger or a big arrow of any sort that now also has Go Again because of the Quicken, and you can just use Tarpit Trap and not only negate the effect of the arrow, but all of the buffs on top of the arrow as well. So that can be very, very devastating. Wax Off is a card that has been brushed off very, very easily, but this together with like Wax On definitely pushes us towards this fabled kind of like turtle ninja that we're waiting to get at some point. And Wax On and Wax Off definitely kind of combine to do exactly that and to be extremely good in preventing and kind of like blocking out other ninjas, basically, right? Because when they're attacking you with like zero costs and you just wax on, wax off them, and then you create the Zen state during your opponent's turn, effectively gaining the Zen state benefits for like 3 turns, I believe. Nuking off their Kudachis, and like their 4 damage attacks are also going to be like 3 for this duration, so it's definitely very powerful effect in my opinion. It's definitely very powerful defensive combo, and I can't wait for them to make a ninja, hopefully this old guy, that has like even more defense reactions and defensive tools, and yeah, just has a defensive ninja style. Contest the Minefield is a card that I've included simply because of UPF playability. I believe this and the last card are basically UPF playable, so I'm going to call them, because UPF seems to be getting a little bit more popularity with obviously their last Professor set. And I've played it, and it plays extremely well. And I believe they have also said that the Heavy Hitters' draft is going to be kind of a UPF draft, which I can't wait to experiment with and experience. And as we're talking about UPF, Contest the Minefield definitely looks like a very fun UPF card that can disrupt like the entire field, right? You can just play this, and now everyone plays with like less cards, and you can kind of like prevent some combos or something like this with this, and it's just going to be a disruptive card for the board, which is something that UPF definitely needs. And then we have System Reset, which in my opinion is a very combo-centric card, probably fit for UPF more yet again. But it's going to be good if in the future, in the far future, we get like another mechanologist set or like something that is going to help like the new dash and so on, with like maybe some more crank items or like another keyword that triggers on basically entering the field. Because this is X, banish X mechanologist items you control, it costs 0 or 1, return them on the arena under their owner's control. So like in a UPF scenario, you can kind of help your fellow mechanologists if they have those items, but at the very least you can bounce your own items, kind of like resetting their counters, as well as like being able to crank all of them in order to receive a bunch of action points that you can now use for all sorts of different things, including like the meal, the meal card that allows you to use an action in order to meal like 2 cards from your opponent or something like this. And I guess that can be cool. And also in something like Dash, it can help you just generate a ton of counters on the pistol. So yeah, that's basically my list of most underrated cards that have that have been released this year. It's quite a long video, but yeah, definitely do tell me your own interpretations of most underrated cards, and if you agree or disagree with some of these takes, and if you have your own. Bye bye.